I am a grandmother. I am a long-time advocate for social and environmental justice. I've got decades of experience in working with non-governmental organizations, industry, civil society, Indigenous communities. And I want to tell you that I am on the ballot again, 3 years later, still looking for action on climate change, still green. You know, at a time, I think, when the UN panel came out and said we have 12 years to act, I asked myself, what can I do? What can I do? And I felt compelled to stand up. And I like to say, I want to stand up for my grandchildren and my children. I want to stand up for the people in this riding. I want to make sure our communities are resilient and that we can withstand the crises that are coming instead of pretending that everything is okay. A lot of discussion we hear is about the economy, pipelines, the price of oil, GM, we're not making cars. What we're not hearing is that our communities and our infrastructure is not going to withstand what we're going to be facing. And we owe it to our children. We owe it to our communities and to each other to take action. And I'm here to ask you that you're prepared to send a message to Ottawa, that you're prepared to vote green in this by-election to signal that climate change is important to you. And I hope that you're prepared to do that. Thank you very much.
Tom Steele. And Tom, I'm going to ask if you can actually walk around and face the panelists. elected, which measures would you advocate to curb our increasing federal deficit? Should we be elected, which measures would you advocate to curb our increasing federal deficit?
We're just going to try a little switch on the mics. Okay, I'm testing. You can still hear me? Great. Now let's see if we hear Tom.
Can you hear me now? Yes. Should you be elected, which measures would you advocate to curb our increasing federal deficit?
I think I will stand up so that the folks in the wings can hear me, although I don't know if other people feel the same way, so that's what I'll do. Thank you for the questions. Good question. What I would say to you is that after 10 years of Mr. Harper's austerity, what we realized is that you cannot cut your way to prosperity. And so what the Liberal government is doing, what the Liberal plan is to make smart investments into our economy, into our social fabric in order to make things better for the middle class, those striving really hard to join it. I'd like to see us bring that right here into Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes. You know, projections show that the investments that are being made are sustainable over the long term. And that, I think, is an important thing for all of us to keep in mind. I'm not in favor of long-term deficits. I do understand I have children and grandchildren. I don't want them to inherit the debt of our current situation way down there in the future. But I do also believe that we have to make these investments for the future prosperity of those children and grandchildren, not just mine, but all of ours. So the way I would look at it is that you can't cut your way to prosperity. We're going to make those investments, and at the end of the day, we're going to bring things around at the time that it makes the most sense. You know, when the economic statement came down in the fall, Minister Morneau could have made the decision with all of the economic growth that had taken place to go forward with deficit reduction. Instead, he chose to invest in the economy in order to make sure that with tax incentives for our businesses, in order to make sure that we maintain our competitiveness with our American neighbors with what's gone on with the tax changes there. Those, I think, are the smart investments that we are making in order to see prosperity for all of us for the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary Jean. Now, I'd like to apologize to Mary Jean. Could I ask everyone to check their cell phones and make sure that they are off? It's very distracting in the middle of an answer. These candidates have not seen the questions before this evening, and it's very difficult for them to gather their thoughts at the best of times. So, now, Michelle, would you like to give a 1-minute rebuttal to Mary Jane's answer?
Thank you. So I think we're missing a really big part of the equation in terms of money going back to where it needs to go, the deficit included, and that's getting people at the top to pay their fair share. There are so many corporations, there are so many high flyers who are taking advantage of tax loopholes and various other scams, to be honest, at the top, and we're not seeing their money when we should. And that money should be there to put in the investments where they're needed. We need to make smart decisions, smart investments. We need to look at initiatives like National Pharmacare, which will actually save money in the long run because we'll have a large amount of clout and buying power. And again, we need to be making sure that we're looking after everybody in our society and putting the investment where it's needed. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Michael.
Can we get your 1 minute rebuttal?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. So, in 2015, we were promised during the election by Justin Trudeau that we would have 3 modest deficits, a return to balance in year 4, and a historic infrastructure program to get us, to get us back on track. What we've seen instead are historic deficits and growth of the national debt, and we have not seen those infrastructure investments. So to say that we cut and there was austere times with the Conservative government, when this riding alone saw tens of millions of dollars in real infrastructure money invested here, and we saw over $100 million invested in broadband here in Eastern Ontario through the Conservative government. I think that that's the kind of investment that we need to see. And the Trudeau Liberals inherited a balanced budget in 2015, and they owe that to Canadians next year.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. And next, Lorraine.
So the question was about the national deficit, it wasn't about the national debt, is that correct? Okay. So yes, I think the first thing I would recommend is to end subsidies to fossil fuels. I just want to say that we've had 2 successive majorities in Canada, and each time we get a majority government, they blame the other ones for overspending and driving us into a deficit situation, when in fact we've been there since the 70s, since we started borrowing from private banks and paying interest. So we have to invest in infrastructure, and we need a new Green Deal. We need a Green Marshall Plan. We can't use the tools that got us into this mess to get us out of this mess. And like John Trammell says, we've got to think outside the box. So we have to go back to the Bank of Canada and look at how can we use our own bank to implement a Green Marshall Plan to create jobs and get us out of deficit. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And John, your 1 minute.
Wow, do I agree. Canada's debt national had much stability till 1974. It starts exponentiality. Same in Ontario, same in Quebec. Debt started to double. So, what happened? 1974, the Bank of Canada stopped making interest-free loans to the provinces and the Fed. And suddenly now all the provinces have to go borrow from the private banks, and the Feds too, which meant that they had deficits. After you take it off the top to pay the interest, you got deficits. So, abolish interest rates, use the Bank of Canada again like they used to do before 1974, and there are no deficits.
Thank you, John. I'd like to invite Mary Jane for her final comments on the first question.
Thank you very much. As a final comment, I would say to you that I've been knocking on a lot of doors here in our communities, and I have heard this question a few times. Someone came in on his way to vote and said, I want you to tell me what you're going to do about the deficit. And I said, I hear you, I'm listening to you, I'm going to take your message to Ottawa. I fully intend to do that. On this being historic deficits, these are not historic deficits, these are modest deficits, and the fact is most of the debt was created by Tory members, or Tory prime ministers anyway, so that would be my comment on that. But at the end of the day, we're going to stand up strong, make the historic investments we need to make, and keep our economy rolling. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mary Jane. Our second question is directed to Michelle and will be read by Brock Tuss.
Michelle, what is your opinion of the recent NAFTA agreement and the impacts that it may have on us as a border island?